Back to the Power Hour. This is Joyce Riley. Thank you for joining us today on the Power Hour. My guest is Bob Chapman. We've got a couple of callers that I do want to try to get to, but let me just ask you to tell us why you think the markets, or why the European Asian markets, why the Asian markets fell overnight. What's going on that we may not be aware of?
Well, in Shanghai, what the Chinese government has done is infuse $1.8 trillion into the economy over the last 6 months. A lot of that money went into the stock market for speculation as well as into real estate. The Chinese government's trying to cool it off. About 2 weeks ago, the Shanghai market dropped 20%. It since had a slight rally. They hit it again this morning. If that 20+% correction continues, we could very well get another 72% correction like we saw between October the 16th of 2007 and November the 8th of 2008. And that's a big fall. And that's not unusual. And I think what we've seen in China is a bear market rally, just like we're seeing in the United States. And this is a replication in the United States of 1930 and 1932, the rallies that occurred at that time. So I think the market's going down. And I think it's going down in China. Something strange happened this morning in Europe. You know, we cover these markets starting at 3:30 a.m. And the FTSE was up the equivalent. That's the Financial Times Index in London, up the equivalent of 70 Dow points. But yet the CAC 40 in Paris was off 36, and the DAX in Frankfurt was up 40 points, which tells me that the U.S. government was in the British market trying to hold it up because they saw pressure coming early on in the U.S. market as a result of the Asian market. And at 3:30, the market was down 58. Now it's down 101 on the Dow. And so you can figure all this up, but you can see how the U.S. government enters in these markets. Now, right now, they're desperately trying to keep the Dow from going down. They've made two major efforts here in the last hour, because I sit here watching it while I'm talking in the program. And this market is weak. It's going lower. And so at the same time, that's why they strive to put down the price of gold to make it look like, well, there's not really anything wrong going on in the stock market. And they expect people to buy that bucket of bolts, but they don't anymore. And so we'll have a rally back in gold and silver before the day is out, and tomorrow will be a better day. But the market is way overpriced.
Okay, let me go to a couple of callers. We've got a Dr. Jim in Texas. Dr. Jim, you're on the air with Bob Chapman. Go ahead, please.
Joyce, first of all, thank you for your guest. Bob Chapman's right on. Thank you for all you do. I called about the flu vaccine. But listening to Bob, I thought I should tell you that I've taken it seriously. I've cashed out my IRA and paid the tax on it, and it's 50% in gold.
Interesting.
I go way back. I'm in my 60s, and my second year of residency in neurology was at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And in any given year, on a large hospital staff, I might see one case of Guillain-Barré, maybe two in any given year. In 1976-77, that winter, because of the frenetic pace of the flu at that point, and everybody's panicking, everybody went through the consideration of getting vaccinations. And during that winter, we saw close to 30 cases of Guillain-Barré.
Whoa.
Which is outright outlandish.
Number one, I want to talk to you at the Power Hour. I'd like for you to give me a call at 877-817-9829, 877-817-9829. Please give me a call after the show if you don't mind. And secondly, stay right there. We'll be right back after this 1 minute, 10-second break with Bob Chapman and our physician friend from Texas. Back in 1 minute, 10 seconds with the Power Hour. Back to the Power Hour. We're talking to Bob Chapman. We only have him for another 5 minutes, but we have Dr. Jim from Texas on the line. And, Jim, are you a neurologist or are you a GP? What kind of physician are you?
I'm a neurologist. I'm a board-certified neurologist. I'm in my mid-60s and don't have any plans to quit anytime soon unless Obama's health care plan becomes just outrageous.
Yeah, well, I want to talk to you after the program about Guillain-Barré, because the very fact that there are now 1,200 letters sent out of ALS from the Department of Defense, the people that had been diagnosed with that's pretty frightening. 1,200 cases. You're saying that you've hardly seen any.
In Everett, now, I make a distinction between ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, and GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome, two different pathologies. But I am suspicious and very worried about the possible association with squalene. I'm reading this excellent book, Vaccine A.
Oh, yes.
About squalene added to the anthrax vaccine. The FDA apparently approved something that was not very effective, so the Defense Department, without telling anybody, added squalene so that we gave our kids over there, our young men and women over there, an outrageously potentially hazardous and totally untested adjuvant. That adjuvant, for your listeners, is something that is added to an immunization to stimulate the body's immune response to whatever's in it.
I'll tell you what, let me go to our next caller. I want to talk to you desperately. I want to talk to you after the show. If you'd give me a call at the Power Hour sometime today, I'd really appreciate that. I've got to move on, though, but thank you, Jim, for that information, ladies and gentlemen. More reason not to take the swine flu vaccine. Let's go to Mike in Tennessee. Mike, you're on the air with Bob Chapman. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Bob and Joyce. And Ted alluded to earlier that something could occur that would turn everything around very quickly. Here's the question I've got for you, Bob. I know several people that many months ago, when the stock market was falling this time last year, they flipped everything over to, believe it or not, Treasury bills and cash in their 401ks. And now that we see the dollar tanking, is there a possibility that they could leave it right where it is and it actually be a good thing, or do you think it's just totally crazy to leave it in those two issues right now? One would be cash and one would be Treasury notes.
Okay. Bob, your response.
The place to go is gold and silver coins, gold and silver shares, and if you want a portion of it in a Treasury-like instrument, you would purchase Treasuries from the country of Canada and from Switzerland. And no matter where you go today, you're going to get 1.5%, 2%, whatever it is. It's hardly even worth thinking about. What you want is capital preservation. And the venues that I've just given you, that's where it's at. And if you want to know how to do it, all you have to do is email me, and I'll tell you. The email address is Bob, B-O-B, at INTFORECASTER.com. Bob at inforcaster.com. And yes, I did get your email.
Okay. Thank you very much for the phone call, Mike in Tennessee. Now, there's a story out today that there is a hidden number of foreclosures that have never even been addressed yet. Now, why is that they are not
There's millions of them. And the reason why is that the banks have so many of them, they don't want to dump them all at the same time. And there are people who are living in homes and have been for a year or more and not paying anything just so that the homes will be occupied so they won't get trashed and turned into other things like drug houses and things like that. But let's say you have a 20 square mile radius and you've got 100 foreclosures. Well, you don't want to list them all. You just crash the prices. And so what they'll do is they'll list 10 or 15, and they do that on an ongoing basis until they sell them, but they're not selling very many of them.
Hey, thank you very much for joining us today. I got to let you go. Thank you so much for joining us, Bob Chapman, theinternationalforecaster.com.